The speedometer reads 0. The engine is running. You can hear it. The air conditioning pushes cold air against the back of your neck. The radio murmurs something you stopped listening to 20 minutes ago. The seatbelt crosses your chest like it always does. Everything is ready. Everything has been ready for 43 minutes. You are sitting at a green light at the corner of Meridian and North 5th, and you cannot explain why your hands refuse to turn the wheel toward the highway ramp. It isn't that you don't want to leave. It's that the car won't let you. It started 4 days ago. An ordinary Wednesday. You filled the tank at the Shell on Grover Street, loaded your duffel bag into the trunk, typed the address of your sister's house into the navigation system. 6 hours away, mountain town, the kind of place where the air tastes different, and drove north without thinking twice. You took the same route you always take. Meridian to the bypass, bypass to the interstate, interstate to anywhere that isn't here. You made it as far as exit 1. The engine didn't sputter. It didn't knock or shake or give you any of the warnings that would have made sense. It simply stopped, the way a conversation stops when someone decides there is nothing left to say. One moment you were doing 62 miles per hour on a clear stretch of highway with the windows cracked and your entire body already beginning to relax. The next moment, silence. The car rolled to the shoulder on its own momentum, smooth and unhurried, like it had planned exactly where it wanted to stop. You called roadside assistance. The technician arrived in 18 minutes, ran diagnostics for half an hour, found nothing. She starts fine, he said, and he was right. The engine turned over without hesitation. You drove back into the city. And when you crossed back under the overpass that marks the edge of downtown, the car seemed to settle, the way a person settles into a familiar chair after a long day. You told yourself it was a fluke. You are no longer telling yourself that. Today is Saturday, 6:51 in the morning. The city smells the way it always smells at this hour. Exhaust and last night's rain and coffee from the diner on the corner that never closes. You packed lighter this time. 1 bag, toiletries, a phone charger. Enough for 3 days. The reservation confirmation is on your phone. Clearwater Cabin, 387 miles north. Check-in begins at 3 p.m. You have done everything correctly. The light is still green. You are still not moving. The car is not doing anything yet. It is just sitting here, idling, breathing, waiting. But your body already knows what is going to happen. And that knowledge has your fingers stiff on the wheel and your eyes fixed on the green signal that should feel like permission and instead feels like a question you don't know how to answer. You put it in drive. You go. North on Meridian. Past the diner, past the post office, past the elementary school with the yellow fence where children will be in a few hours. Past the gas station where you bought coffee at 6:15. Past the overpass, under the overpass, through the intersection where the road widens and the buildings start to thin and the sky opens up the way it only does at the edges of a city, when the density finally admits that it cannot go on forever. The navigation system says, in 2 miles, merge onto the interstate. 1.5 miles. The engine changes pitch. Not a sound you can point to in any manual. Not a rattle or a grinding or anything mechanical that would explain itself. It is more like a frequency, something you register in your sternum before your ears catch it, low and steady and wrong, the way a building hums when something in the infrastructure has shifted. 1 mile. The dashboard flickers. 1 amber light. Then 3. Then the speedometer drops to 0, even though you can feel the road moving beneath you. Even though you can see the white lane markers scrolling under the car. Even though your foot is still pressing the accelerator and your body is still doing everything a body does when it expects to keep going. The engine goes quiet. Not abruptly. Gradually. The way a held breath is finally released, slowly, with total control. The car rolls forward on momentum, bleeding speed without drama, and stops with a gentleness that feels almost considerate, almost apologetic, in the right lane of North Meridian exactly 900 feet from the interstate on-ramp. You can see the entrance sign from here. I-94 North. 2 lanes. Clear sky above it. 3 cars pass you. A delivery truck leans on its horn. You sit with your hands still on the wheel and your eyes on that sign, and you feel something that isn't quite fear. It's closer to recognition. The particular exhaustion of arguing with something that isn't listening. You call roadside assistance again. Same voice, different technician. Same questions. Same 18-minute wait. The man who shows up this time is younger, with a diagnostic tablet and the careful efficiency of someone who takes the job seriously. He spends 40 minutes under the hood. He runs 3 separate scans. He checks every code the system will generate. No faults recorded, he says. Vehicle is operating within all normal parameters. You stare at him. He looks back at you the way people look at someone whose problem they cannot solve and have decided is probably not a problem with the thing they were sent to fix. Where were you headed, he asks. North, you say. Mountains. He writes something on his tablet, closes it, gives you a reference number printed on a small white slip, gets back in his van, drives south, back into the city, without looking back. You sit in the right lane for 6 more minutes. Then you drive south too. That night you search for answers the way people search when they don't know what they're looking for. You type things into the search bar that feel embarrassing even in private. Car shuts off near city limits. Engine dies on highway entrance ramp. Vehicle stops at same location repeatedly. The forums give you theories about oxygen sensors and fuel pump pressure and electrical gremlins. None of it fits. None of it explains the consistency, the precision, the way the car rolls to a stop with the calm authority of something that has decided. You search differently. Asterisk geofencing. Vehicle. Restriction. Asterisk. You find a white paper published by a logistics company. You find a patent filed in 2019 by an automotive technology firm. You find a forum post by a long-haul truck driver who noticed his company vehicle behaved differently outside a certain radius. Reduced power, irregular idle, and on 2 occasions, a complete engine cutoff that the manufacturer blamed on an undisclosed zone compliance module. Zone compliance module. You read that phrase 4 times. Apparently it exists. Apparently it has existed for years in fleet vehicles, in rental cars, in vehicles leased by corporations to employees who aren't supposed to take company property beyond designated areas. A small device, usually hardwired to the engine management system, programmed with a geographic boundary. Cross the boundary. Consequence. The consequence can be subtle, reduced fuel efficiency, a warning light, or it can be absolute. But your car isn't a fleet vehicle. You bought it 2 years ago, used, from a dealership on the south side of the city. You have the title. You have the registration. You have the loan documents with your name on every page. The car is yours. Except, you pull out the folder where you keep paper copies of everything. A habit from a job that required documentation of documentation, and you read the purchase contract with the attention you didn't give it when you signed it, because when you signed it you were thinking about the car and not the paper, the way everyone does, the way everyone always does. Previous owners, too. The first owner is listed as a company, a private transportation company, based in this city, dissolved 14 months before you bought the car. The next morning you drive to where the dealership used to be. The space is empty. Not closed temporarily, not under renovation. Empty in the way that means gone, finished, over. Newspaper taped to the inside of the plate glass windows. A padlock on the roll-up gate. The sign above the entrance has been partially removed, leaving a ghost of letters in a slightly different shade of brick. You try the business next door. A hardware store. The woman behind the counter remembers the dealership. Closed about 10 months ago, she says. Some kind of issue with their inventory records. Or their licenses. I'm not sure. They were there on a Friday and gone by Monday. You sit in the car in the parking lot. You put your hands on the wheel without starting the engine. The leather is warm from the morning sun, the way it always is, the specific warmth of this car that you have driven every day for 2 years and know the way you know your own apartment. The slight pull to the left, the radio presets you've adjusted a dozen times. The small crack in the corner of the left side mirror that you keep meaning to have fixed. This is your car. You know it completely. And yet, what would you do if you found out that something you believed was entirely yours had never stopped following someone else's instructions? You find the mechanic through a friend who uses the phrase, "he's the real kind," without elaborating further. The shop is on a dead-end street in the warehouse district, a building with no sign, just a number painted on the curb. The mechanic is in his early 60s, with hands that carry the permanent gray of someone who has worked in metal his entire life. You tell him everything. He listens without interrupting. When you finish, he says, "Leave it with me. Come back at 4. You come back at 4. He is standing at the workbench with the hood raised and something sitting on a shop cloth beside the diagnostic equipment. Something small, rectangular, black, with a multi-pin connector at one end and what looks like a short antenna along one edge. The size of a thick deck of cards. Found it in the secondary harness, he says. wired directly into the engine control module. Professional installation, not dealer work, not aftermarket. This was done by someone who knew what they were doing and didn't want it found. You pick it up. It weighs almost nothing. It is completely anonymous, the kind of object that would be invisible if you didn't know it was there, and invisible is exactly what it was designed to be. What does it do, you ask? Zone compliance system. GPS enabled. It monitors the vehicle's position against a programmed perimeter. When the vehicle crosses the boundary, it sends a signal to the ECM that interrupts fuel delivery. Controlled cutoff. No fault codes generated. Looks like a random stall. You are quiet for a moment. What's the perimeter, you ask? He turns his phone to show you. A satellite map, your city seen from above, familiar and strange at the same time. The way things are when you see them from a perspective you weren't meant to have. Around the city's edges, following its natural boundaries roughly but not exactly, is a circle. Clean, deliberate, drawn by someone who knew exactly where they wanted it. Every point where your car stopped is on that circle. You stand there holding the device and feeling the specific stillness of a moment when something that was hidden becomes visible and you understand that the shape of the thing has been there all along. Can you remove it? You ask. Already did, he says. You leave the shop at 4:23 p.m. The device is in your jacket pocket. You don't know why you kept it. It seems important to have proof, or maybe it just seems important to keep the thing close, to hold it instead of leaving it behind where it can be forgotten. You point the car north and you drive, and you don't let yourself think about anything except the road ahead. Meridian to the bypass. Bypass to the interstate entrance. You pass the gas station, the elementary school, the post office, the intersection where the road widens and the buildings thin and the sky does what it does at the edges of cities. The navigation system says, in 1 mile, merge onto the interstate. Half a mile. The engine holds its pitch, even and strong and entirely unconcerned. You hold yours too. The on-ramp, the white lines, the long open throat of the interstate stretching north. You press the accelerator and the car responds, instantly, without hesitation, without any of the subtle wrongness that you now understand you had been feeling for 4 days without the words to describe it. The speedometer climbs. 60, 70, 75. The city falls behind you in the rearview mirror. Dense and gray and intricate, the compressed version of years of your life. And for a moment it looks exactly like what it is. A place, an ordinary place. A place that had no power over you except the power that had been installed, without your knowledge, in the secondary harness of your own car. The sky north of the city is a different kind of blue. Wider, less reflected. The blue of a sky that doesn't have enough buildings to argue with. You drive with one hand on the wheel and the other resting on the door, and you think about all the boundaries that don't announce themselves. All the circles drawn around you by people who understood exactly how far they wanted you to go and wired the consequence quietly into systems you trusted without inspection. The device is in your pocket. 387 miles ahead. A mountain, a cabin, 3 days, air that tastes different. Behind you, a city that believed it had already solved for your return. Some things that hold you never look like a cage. They look like a car that starts every morning and takes you everywhere, except the one place you're trying to go.